Let's look at doing a capture in Wireshark. So I've opened up Wireshark and this is what you should see. And I think I pointed out before, several ways you can go about starting a capture. I usually go to options, but that's just my preference. And here we have the wireless network connection selected. Now I've been doing some captures already, so I've already put the check in the box. Every once in a while we want to do some options here, but I'm okay with everything today. I'll click on Start. Then I'm going to go and actually trigger something, and I was trying to remember where I put it. There it is. This of course is my web server, and I've got a little simple page set up here. Now I can click the red box and stop this. Now if you're looking at this, you may be thinking that my Wireshark looks different than yours, and it does because I've done some customization to suit the way I like to work. If you right click here in the headers of the columns, you can come down here and do column preferences. Now I've added a couple things: source port, destination port. I've also added way over here to the right the UTC time and date. I think I've added this to packet length. To add, you just click down here and then select what you want to add. So I think I need to do a little more customization on mine. To really make it do what I want. Because as I look at it, it's showing me UDP ports. I'd rather have TCP ports, so I'll fix that. But you can move these around if you want to. You just drag and drop. But let's go back to what I wanted to show you. I did requested a web page, obviously, and there's a lot of other things going on here. I've got a couple, 3 different email applications open, which periodically check for updates. So, for example, I know for sure this is one of them. I'm not sure which one it is. There are tools out there I can give this IP number and maybe get a fix on which ones it is. But sometimes it's hard to pick out what you're interested in. So let's look at using a simple filter. So I'm going to type TCP and then a period, and that'll show you the big list of TCP options. I know I want to do TCP flags, and that pins it down even more. And I want the send flags. So I double clicked on that and then click apply. So this is going to show me everything that Wireshark thinks as a send flag. Now a couple of these I'm still trying to figure out, like this. This is an ACK packet. I'm not sure why Wireshark thinks the send flag is set. I have to think about this a little bit. I noticed this earlier. But you'll notice I do have a lot fewer things to look at here. So this will do here. This is my destination server. or my web server is as the destination. And I'd like to look at the three-way handshake of this. Now, you may also notice here I've got the colorization turned off. The colors frankly bother me. Whether you choose to use them is your own personal preference. If you want to turn them back on, you can click here. This will turn them back off when Wireshark gets around to doing it. Let me show you something here. If I wanted to follow this particular conversation, I can colorize the conversation. Now I'm looking at TCP here. So if I wanted to, I could put that color on it. Now it's not going to show it to me until I colorize the packets. Now I got to move off of the packet I was looking at, because whatever packet you're looking at is in this blue. So here is the SYN, the SYN-ACK, and the ACK, the three-way handshake, and then this is the actual web page request and reply, etc. So I've colorized that whole conversation there. You could also, let's see, do the same thing up here, if I can remember where it's at. Yeah, that's right. Under Analyze, if you click on Follow the TCP stream, you get another window. There's some interesting things in here that you may or may not want to use. This is more about the actual contents of the packet. But you'll notice that it's just showing me the interesting, well, it's showing me all the packets in this particular conversation. And I've still got my pink color on here, and I haven't figured out how to remove that color short of turning the colorization completely off. I can change the color, but I want to try to turn the coloring completely off. It takes a little while. I have a lot of things open on my computer. Okay, while we're waiting on that, what I want you to do is what I've done here. Use my web server and access my web server, generate some packets, and in this case I'm interested in the three-way handshake. So this is the initial SYN packet, this is the SYN-ACK, this is the final ACK. I'm interested in those three packets. And another change that I've made here is under Preferences, I believe it is, under Protocols, and if you're thinking there sure are a lot of protocols, you're right. TCP, I thought this is where I was. Maybe it's back up in a more general place. I've turned off TCP name resolution, and you can look around till you find that. What this does, instead of showing the instead of having Wireshark try to match up the source port to something that's commonly used, it just gives me the number. And the same thing on the other end. Instead of saying here under info and the 80, instead of giving me HTTP as the destination port, it just shows port 80. The reason I like it this way is I can remember that port 80 is the typically used for web services, and so I don't have to look at the sometimes weird mappings you get on the source ports, so, which to me are just confusing. If you have it turned off, this TCP name resolution, you'll know what I mean. You'll see some weird things here for source ports. So that's another little modification I've made. What I want you to do is access my web server, record this in Wireshark, and we're going to pick out some numbers here in the three-way handshake packets. Now, something you might want to do is we can just mark these three. Right click, mark packet. So I've got three marked packets here, and I can just save as. No, that's not what I want. I want to do it export. They make changes from version to version. Let's try export specified packets. And here I can select marked packets, and notice that there's three of them under the displayed column. And I can call this HTTP three-way handshake. And save that. And if I open this back up, notice I have to clear my filter. Here are my three packets that I was looking at a while ago. Now what I want you to do is, and I'm also reminded here, there's another modification I made here under time. I think it's under view, yeah. Time display format. I think it defaults to something like seconds since beginning of capture. I've changed mine in this case to seconds since previous displayed packet. So that'll let me know how much latency it is there is between the packets. Looking at these, I'm a little confused as to what oh, they're out of order. There you go. That makes sense. Somehow I clicked on something here, and yeah, I think I clicked on the time column, and it reordered the packet. So here we go. Send, SYNAC, ACK. So you'll notice that my initial send in this case has been marked as time 0, and a little over 13/100ths of a second later I get my response from my web server. So that tells me the packet latency. between um, my home computer that I'm sitting at and my web server. And this one is how fast my computer responded. So there's some interesting information there you might want to consider. So what I want you to do is pin this down to just the three-way handshake and then provide some information. Such things as in the Ethernet header, source MAC address, destination MAC address. Now you'll notice here that Wireshark is clever enough to map the first 24 bits of the MAC address as a Cisco interface. And on the source here, notice it maps that as an Intel Corporation number, first 24 bits. Now you may be thinking why the destination MAC address is showing up as Cisco-LI when I'm accessing web server. Recall that this destination MAC is simply the next hop, which happens to be my home router, which is a Linksys, which is now made by Cisco. So we'll talk about how packets move around on the internet later, but this is the next hop hardware address. So I'd like for you to give me the hardware addresses, and let's see what else is interesting in here. Oh, the IP numbers, of course, on for your source and destination. Source port and destination port under TCP would be interesting as well. And sequence number on both ends. Wireshark by default will take the real sequence number, which is down here, and basically make that the starting point for it's what it displays for you, which makes it kind of easy to follow what's going on here. I've forgotten which packet I'm looking at. Here we go. This is the first one. You'll notice in the first packet we have a sequence number going out, but in the next field here there's nothing, and that's because in the send packet the sending computer is including its initial sequence number here in the packet, but since it hasn't made a connection with the destination computer, there's going to be nothing in this field. Now that'll show up in the SYNAC packet that comes back. So if we look under, I'm just going to close these, under the TCP section of the SYNAC packet, notice now we have something in the this is the acknowledgement. This will be the sequence number. This is the sequence number coming from the destination computer. So if you look at this number, that's coming from this packet. So here's the acknowledgement. The SYNAC is that part there. So this is acknowledging the sequence number in packet 1. It's also sending its initial sequence number, which is this number. Again, Wireshark has arbitrarily made this a starting point, Well, it's not arbitrary. It's made it a starting point for Wireshark's numbering system. Here, this is the final ACK packet going back from my computer to the web server. And if you look at the acknowledgement, this is acknowledging the sequence number from the sending from the destination computer, which is up here in this packet. So if you never went over the three-way handshake, this is going to be confusing. You should have had you should have been exposed to this already in the first networking course. But if you're having trouble with this concept, I can make available some more information on how the three-way handshake works. So I'll write up an assignment on this. It's mainly to get you some experience using Wireshark.